December 25th, 2024, Baku City. At 6:30 in the morning, the crew of Azerbaijan's AZAL Embraer E190 aircraft underwent a medical examination and began preparing for the flight. The pilots reviewed the weather conditions at Grozny Airport, where they were scheduled to land. In Grozny, the sky was covered with clouds, and visibility started from 210 meters with dense cloud cover. The mountains were hidden in the clouds. In such conditions, although the minimum cloud base allowed is 115 meters, it was still possible to land using the satellite system. Thus, the weather conditions allowed the crew to proceed with the flight.
At this time, Silkway Technic's maintenance staff inspected the aircraft's exterior condition, checked the equipment, lubricated parts if needed, refueled the aircraft with fuel, nitrogen mixture, oxygen, and water, and ensured that all doors and hatches were securely closed. The pilots started pre-flight preparations, and within half an hour the aircraft was fully ready for departure. On board this flight were 37 passengers from Azerbaijan, 16 from Russia, 6 from Kazakhstan, and 3 from Kyrgyzstan. 9 minutes later, the plane lifted off into the sky. The flight plan was carried out approximately as follows. The first 12 minutes climb from the ground, then 18 minutes of straight flight. After that, around 30 minutes were planned for the approach and landing. The aircraft climbed to the planned flight level 300, in other words, 9,150 meters. After this, it left Azerbaijan's airspace and entered the Rostov control zone of Russia. On this route, the aircraft moved from waypoint to waypoint using GPS signals for navigation. Half an hour passed since takeoff. According to the plan, landing was near. Exactly at this moment, both GPS units on board failed. Normally, if one GPS fails, the other continues to provide navigation, but in this case, both stopped working. Now the aircraft could no longer descend precisely using satellites. That meant the only option was to land through radio beacons, in other words, using the NDB method. But the weather conditions did not allow that. For NDB landing, the minimum cloud base required is 260 meters, while now it was only 210 meters. RNP landing based on satellite GPS navigation, providing more accurate approach. If GPS fails, this method becomes impossible. NDB landing the older method. The aircraft relies only on radio signals from ground beacons. But these signals do not provide vertical guidance, so the pilots must calculate the descent height themselves.
Azerbaijan 8243, ready for landing. Both GPS systems have failed. Request Remco 1 X-ray route.
Azerbaijan A243, prepare for Remco 1 X-ray route.
At this time, the aircraft was flying at 6,400 meters. The crew was listening to the weather report for NDB landing.
Visibility, 3,300 meters. Fog. Cloud base, 210 meters. No obstacles visible. Pressure, 1,005 hectopascals.
But for NDB landing, the cloud base must be at least 260 meters. Now it was 50 meters lower, which created difficulties for approach.
Azerbaijan 8243, we're descending toward flight level 130.
Good day, Azerbaijan 8243. GPS failure acknowledged. Clear to land through NDB via Victor Point on runway 26.
Hey, we haven't set the QNH pressure yet, right? Let's set it. QNH 1025.
The aircraft was preparing to land via the Victor Point. At this stage, the controller was guiding the aircraft manually by radio. The crew had to follow the controller's instructions step by step.
There's no distance measuring beacon here. How many degrees is the glide slope? 3? 2.67. There's no altitude chart here either. Yes, absolutely nothing.
Ground NDB radio beacons cannot show exact distance. With GPS also out, the crew did not know precisely what altitude they were at for approach. Moreover, the NDB scheme being used had no altitude reference tables. The aircraft approached the aerodrome, but the ground was not visible through the clouds. The crew relied only on the controller's guidance.
Azerbaijan 8243, turn right to heading 250 degree. Cleared NDB approach, runway 26.
What's our distance?
Distance 14 kilometers.
In such weather, landing without visual contact with the runway was extremely difficult. Even though the controller gave clearance, the final decision rested with the captain.
12 kilometers remaining. Approaching glide slope. Surface wind calm. Cleared to land runway 26.
Normally, the glide slope, the descent path, is provided by ground radio beacons, but here there were none, so the pilots had to calculate altitude and speed themselves. The aircraft was now very close to the runway. Only a few minutes remained, yet the crew still could not see the runway lights.
Let's just descend. We must break through the first cloud layer, no other choice. Okay, go ahead, descend. Hey, we've passed it already. Where's the runway? 260. There, we're entering the runway zone.
As the aircraft approached the runway, the spoilers, wing brakes, and landing gear were deployed. The onboard system showed that they were nearing the minimum altitude allowed for landing. If the runway was not visible at that altitude, the aircraft had to climb away again.
Nothing in sight. So, what now? Tell the controller we're going around. Azerbaijan 8243. Conditions not suitable for landing. Going around.
At this moment, Captain Igor Kshniakin decided to abort the approach, hoping that on the next attempt the clouds might lift. The first attempt failed. The crew climbed again, preparing for another approach. The controller vectored them back to the runway. This time, the captain decided to hand over the controls to the first officer.
Don't just sit. Take the controls. All right, I'll try. Your control. But I've never... You have control. Understood. This is my first NDB landing. I've never done this before. That's okay. You'll learn. In this fog, how do I keep track of distance? Don't worry. The controller will tell you the distance.
During the first attempt, the first officer was communicating with the controller in English. This was normal practice. But in such a difficult situation, the captain, Alexander Kalyaninov, asked to switch to Russian for better clarity.
Ask how far it is to the third waypoint. Where are we going exactly? Ask in Russian. I'm not used to speaking Russian on the radio. Grozny, Azerbaijan, 8243. Azerbaijan 8243. This is Grozny Tower. Switching communication to Russian. What course should we maintain? Heading 180 degrees. Azerbaijan 8243. Weather. Visibility 3,300 meters. Cloud base 240 meters. Fog present.
The clouds had risen 30 meters compared to before, reaching 240 meters. If they rose just a little more, they would reach the minimum required 260 meters.
We're descending through 900 meters. Shall we extend the landing gear now? Yes. Azerbaijan 8243. Continue navigation independently down to 500 meters. Azerbaijan 8243. We've reached 500 meters. Based on distance, when can we continue descent further? According to my data, your altitude is 330 meters. We have 500 meters. Azerbaijan 8243. You are approaching the glide slope. Wind is calm. Cleared to land runway 26. Lights have been turned on.
Because the QNH pressure had been set incorrectly, the crew's instruments were giving wrong altitude readings. In other words, the pilots and the controller were not working with the same altitude data. The crew was essentially trying to land by eye based on the controller's limited updates. But the controller gave altitude information only 3 times before landing, while the crew needed continuous updates.
What's the next altitude? Quickly! Still nothing visible. Wait, I can see the ground. Captain, continue descent. Yes, but hold on. We're descending. Wait, I saw the ground for a moment, but it disappeared again. Damn it, nothing visible. Let's go around again. Go around.
The second attempt also failed. The captain could not see the runway and decided to abort again. Due to weather conditions, it was impossible to land in Grozny. That meant the only options were to divert to another airport or return to Baku.
Azerbaijan 8243. We are heading back to Baku.
Azerbaijan 8243. Understood. Climb to 900 meters on current heading.
At this point, the situation was still under control. The aircraft could not land in Grozny and was turning back towards Baku. As the aircraft headed back toward Baku, Suddenly, an unexpected loud impact was heard from outside. 23 seconds later, another impact. Immediately, an emergency alarm sounded in the cockpit. The autopilot and automatic thrust control disengaged. The captain called the flight attendant to calm the passengers.
An explosion. 2 seats have blown apart. Passengers are standing up. I can't get close.
Explosion? Did you say there was an explosion?
Yes, twice.
The agitated captain reported to air traffic control.
Grozny, we've lost control. A bird strike hit the plane. 2 seats were blown apart and the engines are failing.
Azerbaijan 8243. Understood. What assistance do you require?
We need information on the nearest airport where the weather is good enough to land. We'll divert there.
At that moment, the cabin lost pressure. A signal indicated depressurization. The crew attempted to keep control and make the right decisions. At the same time, they tried to assess the scale of the damage by working through emergency checklists. Request for alternate airport. 4 minutes later, the captain asked for Makhachkala's weather.
Give us the weather for Makhachkala. We need Makhachkala. Azerbaijan 8243. Are you diverting to Makhachkala? Yes, exactly. Give us the weather for Makhachkala.
At this very moment, Grozny Tower received a report about a cover regime emergency situation. The crew needed to decide which aerodrome to head for. 3 minutes later, the controller reported Makhachkala's weather. By then, despite wearing oxygen masks, some passengers were losing consciousness due to lack of oxygen.
Azerbaijan 8243 Grozny Tower. We've lost the hydraulic system. Give us exact vectors. We're heading to Makhachkala. Azerbaijan 8243. Turn left to heading 100 degrees.
The pilots had now lost almost all control. The only way to fly was by adjusting engine thrust. Reducing thrust lowered the nose, causing descent. Increasing thrust raised the nose, causing climb. Reducing thrust on the right engine turned the aircraft right. Reducing thrust on the left turned it left. But such control was extremely difficult and risky. Handed over to Rostov Control, Grozny Tower transferred the flight to Rostov Control. The pilots continued flying at flight level 90, about 2,750 meters. At this altitude, passengers could breathe without oxygen masks. The captain made a final decision to head to Baku.
Azerbaijan 8243. On your present heading, you'll reach mountainous terrain. If possible, maintain heading 090 degree. If there are no obstacles, we'll try to bring you to Bumor waypoint. Weather. Wind calm. Visibility 10 kilometers. Cloud 960 m.
The captain called the flight attendant again, telling them to reassure the passengers as they diverted back to Baku. Cockpit warnings. In the cockpit, bank angle and high-speed warnings repeatedly sounded. Bank angle indicated the aircraft was tilting dangerously. High speed indicated the speed had exceeded limits. About 30 minutes after the first impact, the crew were still flying, controlling the aircraft only by managing engine thrust. The controller tried to fully understand the situation to prepare emergency services on the ground.
Azerbaijan 8243. Fuel remaining 3,830 kilograms. Engines operating, but ailerons and elevators are not working. Azerbaijan 8243. Can you tell us how much fuel remains in terms of time and which engine the bird struck? How can we know that? If we knew, wouldn't that be better?
The captain had no time to answer further. He was fully focused on planning the flight path. Finally, he made another crucial decision: to land at Aktau.
Would it be possible to land at Aktau? It's closer. Okay, then let's land at Aktau.
Diversion to Aktau and final approach. Preparation. The captain explained to the first officer how to control the damaged aircraft under emergency conditions. Whichever engine you reduce, the plane will turn in that direction. Understood.
Azerbaijan 8243. Weather at Aktau during the last 30 minutes. Wind 040 degree, 6 m per s. Visibility more than 10 kilometers. Clouds at 1,080 meters. Active runway, no, 11.
Then we'll go to Aktau. Requesting emergency readiness. In a sorrowful tone, the captain requested, all rescue services, fire brigades, ambulances, and emergency teams should be fully prepared. At Aktau Airport, the control tower received full information about Flight 8243. An emergency alert was declared at the airport. Rescue vehicles took positions on the taxiways, ready to respond. Aircraft behavior. Meanwhile, the damaged plane was losing altitude, then climbing again, veering off course from time to time. The controller reported these deviations, and the pilot struggled to correct the errors using only engine thrust. In the cockpit, the captain repeatedly checked the condition of the passengers. Some were already unconscious due to earlier oxygen deprivation. By now, 2 hours had passed since takeoff and 42 minutes since the first impact.
The exhausted captain asked the first officer for water. It became his last sip of water. Conversation before approach. First officer.
What's the landing procedure? Do we use VOR? If no system is working, what VOR? We'll just land visually.
The flight slowly descended to flight level 60, about 1,800 meters. The captain ordered the first officer to send a Mayday distress call.
Mayday, Mayday. Azerbaijan 8243 Aktau Tower, requesting emergency landing on runway 11.
Azerbaijan 8243 Aktau Tower, we recognize you. Information received. Maintain heading 070 degree. With only 13 kilometers left to the aerodrome, Captain Igor Kshniakin finally saw the runway lights. The crew extended the landing gear and flaps. If possible, we'll circle and then land.
Azerbaijan 8243. Understood. Cleared to land. Wind 20 degrees. 5 m/s.
First officer, excited.
There it is. The runway. Yes, I see it. But we must land exactly there. Where is it? Where-o?
With only 5 kilometers left to Aktau, the aircraft struck the ground while banked to the right.
It crashed with the landing gear and flaps extended. The flight supervisor reported that the plane had crashed near some village. Emergency services immediately rushed to the crash site. Within 7 minutes, the first survivors were found. Another 7 minutes later, the fire was fully extinguished. Investigation, casualties, and political consequences. The next day, Kazakhstan's Ministry of Transport established a special commission. It included representatives from Azerbaijan, Russia, Brazil, ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization, and the Embraer Company. Final results. There were a total of 67 people on board.
39 people died. 28 people survived, including 3 Kyrgyz citizens among the survivors. By order of the President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, the crew members who showed extraordinary courage and dedication were honored. Captain Igor Kshniakin, Captain Alexander Kalyaninov, Senior Flight Attendant Hukume Aliyeva were posthumously awarded the title National Hero of Azerbaijan. Surviving flight attendants Zulfigar Asadov and Aydin Ragemli were awarded the First-Class Order of Courage. Ilham Aliyev publicly blamed Russia for the disaster, demanding that those responsible be punished and that compensation be considered.
Later, Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed regret and apologized, acknowledging that the crash happened within Russian-controlled airspace. Initially, it was announced that the aircraft had been struck by birds. But later, it was revealed that it had not been a bird strike. Instead, it was hit by missiles from Russia's Pantsir air defense system. 2 missiles were launched, exploding near the aircraft's tail section. The shrapnel destroyed the control systems. Although the engines were still running, the aircraft's control surfaces no longer worked. As a result, the crew lost control and the plane crashed. Experts concluded, if the missile had not struck, even with GPS failure, the aircraft could have landed safely. The plane was likely not deliberately targeted. It may have been mistaken for a drone coming from Ukraine. Nevertheless, the fact remained, the crash was caused by a surface-to-air missile. This tragedy dealt a severe blow to Azerbaijan-Russia relations. Already strained, the relationship ignited further tensions after the incident. In conclusion, such accidental shoot-downs are not unique. The United States once shot down an Iranian aircraft. Iran shot down a Ukrainian plane. Russia shot down a Malaysian plane. These examples show the dangers of flying in conflict zones. Closing words. So, friends, this tragedy reminds us, when conflicts are ongoing,
It is better to avoid flying in dangerous regions. What about you? Do you feel safe flying? How safe do you think airplanes really are? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you appreciate our effort, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit like. Wherever you travel, may you always be far from danger. Stay safe and may your day be bright.